The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Theme song is gonna play, and I don't want to have it playing in the background, and I don't even know. So let's check and see if the Trench Talk theme is gonna play this week. There it is. You tuned into the Farron Dozier Show on mbradio.us, Trench Talk Edition, and Live Tour Sports. Catch me here Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, only on mbradio.us. How'd I do? Was that a good take? That might work. All right, good evening. Welcome to the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCAA Radio.com website and mbradio.us. We got to bless the show before we get started. Let's go. When I was in my mother's womb, I had a calling on my life to do something in the glory of God and marry it like a wife. Commit myself to his word and never be led astray. And when it's all over, when he comes, I'll be glad to see that day in the morning time. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh, man, that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn. Are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. You know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army, 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man. There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org. All right, welcome to another episode of the Farron Dozier Show right here on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. That's right, MBR. Thank you for checking in today. If you have not been around, I've been on a little hiatus, just going through some transitions and some change and just rediscovering some things, doing a lot of self-work. A lot of advocacy work. The basketball season is finally over as well, so we'll touch on some of those things. But yeah, thanks for tuning into the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific Time. I haven't gone anywhere. Just been, like I said, sorting through some things and here to just have a conversation with you, probably for about only an hour this time. I don't have a guest today, so we won't do 90 minutes. But I could talk 90 minutes. I've done it before, but really today we're just going to touch on some topics that I want to bring some awareness to if you're not familiar with who I am or what I'm up to, and just to reinforce some conversations, because what I realize is that PSA that you just heard there is very important, very, very important conversation. And I almost forgot how important it is and was, because just again, the things that I've been transitioning and dealing with and looking at life from a different perspective and different perceptions and interpretations. But that sickle cell trait conversation is very critical. It's important, but it's critical because these kind of conversations could help maybe prevent premature death. We don't get a say so when, where, why, or how people die. We only get an opinion, right? And so I have to be very aware of that because we care about people so much as human beings. We love one another, but then we don't know when our time is done here on this planet. So the best thing that I can do with my conversation is bring some awareness to some of these inherited genes that we personally deal with, like myself, or other ones that are similar that could also cause health complications because they think you're just a carrier. And in a carrier state, you should not have any problems. And that's one of the conversations that have been had around sickle cell trait for many years. It's only been discovered about 119 years or so, or 20, 100 something years. And so saying that, I'm 56, so half my life pretty much it's only been discovered and been doing research on. And so yes, the focus has been mainly on sickle cell disease or anemia because of course the children are born with that disease. There's no cure for it, no universal cure today. And so yes, I do understand why the focus has been focused on the children and the newborn screenings and things, but for some reason the information did not get passed effectively to a lot of sickle cell trait carriers, right? A lot of states wasn't doing testing for sickle cell trait until the late 1990s and 2000s, right? And some states still don't do sickle cell trait screenings unless it's suspected that they need to actually do that test for that family, right? So it's very important. It is a public health issue to the point where I say it is a critical conversation, right? Because people are exercising and doing things with their health and not knowing, having children and not knowing that they carry these inherited genes, and then they pass these on to their children. So that PSA that you heard in the beginning of the show, that is a real live, real-time conversation. All of us in that episode PSA, those are real true life stories, from Turquoise to the singer, and even the guy who walked up on the bench, who was supposed to be on the light. He was supposed to help do the sound and lighting that day, but one of my partners, he didn't show up, so we had him stand in. And his question was legitimately a realistic conversation because he was not aware of that sickle cell trait gene, or thought it was just a black gene. So yeah, that is a real life conversation, and I'm blessed to have completed that, right? Because we don't really see that many PSAs around sickle cell trait. And so I'm glad that God allowed me to produce that and fulfill that vision that I had in my head for probably like 5 years before I even published that. And so, yeah, that is a very important conversation. So we're going to touch on some of those different aspects of sickle cell trait around another condition, which is April is Rhabdomyolysis Awareness Month. And so we're going to definitely touch on that conversation as well, since it is the awareness month. And I experienced rhabdomyolysis with my sickle cell trait exertion. So we're going to touch on that. And then we're going to just go through the clock. I have a variety show here. So we talk about any and everything, from music to sports to life to grief, whatever the conversations are that people want to have. You are more than welcome to come here and share that conversation with us, talk about it, talk from it, help give some insights. If you care about veterans, this is a military platform. So if you care about veterans and you support veterans, you are more than welcome to reach out to me at Farron Dozier on all your social media platforms and be a guest, and we'll have a conversation, right? Natural, organic. I'm not here to, cause problems or slander your name. No, we don't do that here. We just have conversations about what it is to help and support others in the areas of the causes that we care about, right? That's pretty much what we do here. Shouts out to the Military Broadcast Radio Network. You see that QR code up there? Make sure you go there. You can donate to us. They provide the platform, all of this for us. We're on Roku TV. We're on Spotify, we're all over the place. And so they provide this space for veterans to giving veterans a voice. And this is what we do here. So this is my spot, my time here, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Yes, I'm here to share my story. So I want to play one music video. You know, the world is where it is today. As a veteran, you know, I'm looking at all the things that are going on in the world, and you know, we're in a different place. Familiar. I don't think this is the first time we can say that this has happened. But there's a lot of opinions about what's going on in the world today. There's a lot of things that are happening around the country. There are people just wilding out. I mean, there's from our children to adults. I mean, there's so much going on, and we'll dance and talk about some of that stuff. But yeah, there's a lot going on. So I want to play this from my military, from my veteran community. We thank you. You know, again, you know, people they say to me, oh, you know, thank you for your service. I say thank you for paying your taxes because I'm retired, and so you are contributing, yes, from my time in service and from my other brothers and sisters who are serving and retired. So we thank you. But if you want to really thank us for our service, reach out to us, because we have programs, we have curriculums, we have conversations that need more than just a thank you. If you really want to alter and transform the veteran suicide conversations, if you really want to touch in and tap in on some of these conversations that are life altering, life changing, we do have conversations around that. And one of the locations that I hang out with is the LBI Solutions. That conversation, if you watch some episodes, Caldwell Williams has been educating people in this space of mindfulness since the 1960s, early 60s, into the 70s, into the 80s, into the 90s, the 2000s, and even currently I'm working with him around veteran suicide. But also this conversation is not just about veterans, this is about human beings. And so when we're talking about giving foundation skills and communication skills to not just the veterans community or the sports community, but children, our conversation is a human being conversation. Human beings, there's a lot going on in our minds, right? And so sometimes we may not have gotten the foundation skills, or maybe we forgot about the foundation skills that actually allow us to experience life in a harmonious way in communication versus communicating to react or communicating to respond. We say we're good listeners, but are we really good listeners, right? And so we do have, in this aspect, some conversations that I'm blessed to be a part of. I'm his curricular trainer. Caldwell today is 92 years old. He is 92 years old, and I'll pull up a screen for that later on. But he is 92 years old and still at it. We're after a couple of organizations right now that we're close to being able to possibly partner with to move this conversation forward and take care of the community, from elementary schools to middle schools to high schools to veterans of sports. I mean, you look at depression and anxiety, it is something going on in the world, right? There's an attack on the hearts of people, right? The mind, the will, and the emotions. Sometimes we got to learn how to balance those and cipher through those stories in the past, and living from resentment and regret. There's a whole lot goes on in this brain. This is powerful. This brain that we carry is powerful. It is surviving off of perception patterns, memory patterns, and action patterns, right? And so when you understand that, how powerful this brain is, and then the things that we make up as far as our perceptions, that's the key, right? Is our perception. Life can look a lot of different ways, and the reality of it could be it feels like those different ways as well. So that's one of the places that I work with that. I don't think I have EQ Athletics on here. No, I don't have EQ Athletics on here, but we'll be able to talk about that one too shortly. So I want to play this video, and then we're going to come back and we're going to get right into these conversations, because I don't plan to be here too long today. But again, thank you for tuning in. This is the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network.
guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's a line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey. From the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana, to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop, and his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Front line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, pay the ultimate price. Oh. He was the man of the house when he was born. His family is proud but torn. But if you knew him, you would understand. He was raised on how to be brave, just to see the flag still wave. And then he came home with only one hand. 'Cause Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, hear the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Marching line. Hey. Hey.
Mr. Red, White, and Blue, Mr. and Mrs., because we do honor our female veterans as well. So we don't take those conversations lightly around here. We are all service members and soldiers, male, female, men, women, and we appreciate songs like that help contribute to our conversations. So I was talking about EQ Athletics. If you want more information about EQ Athletics, you could go there. We do a similar conversation around that. We do leadership. We do sports and conditioning with EQ Athletics, and we also do my part of the conversation that I bring to the table when I'm over there with them is the emotional intelligence, a lot of social emotional conversations. And I want to say why that's important, because I actually did a talk last year at an elementary school, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, and career day. Now, I have done career days before in my lifetime and a couple, and was asked to do a career day for this elementary school. And so I did. I went. I brought my camera because I went to TV broadcasting radio school when I retired. And I brought a PowerPoint presentation that has pictures of me from my childhood age up until adult age. And I wore my BDU jacket, right? And so as I'm doing my presentations with this first class, they're 3rd, 4th, 5th graders. So you're like, okay, let me. They're young, but you want to still get a sense of what's in their hearts about what do you want to be when you grow up and things like that. So my first question, of course, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the hands go up and they're like, oh, I want to be a football player. You know, you got all the different dynamics. And there's one young little lady, she says, I want to be a veterinarian. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know, okay, so you like the animals? He's like, yeah, I want to take care of the animals. And that triggered my next question. Since we were we had the IE Hounds and we were doing our For the Love of Dogs campaign, I was like, okay, so then what's your favorite pets? And so they raise their hands and everybody's talking about their favorite pet, and it's, you know, cats and dogs and giraffes and kangaroos and all these different animals. And then this little girl in front of me on the floor, she sat on the floor and she says, my goldfish died. And I'm like, oh, you know, I could look in my life and I could remember when we had some goldfish and the goldfish died. And I'm like, you know, I know how that feels. I know how that feels. So whatever God allowed me to say to that little girl, I delivered that message. And then as the other children are raising their hands to share their favorite pet, she says, I had to flush it down the toilet. Now, when she said I had to flush it down the toilet, of course, you would think to laugh and like, oh yeah, you know, well, that's what we did when we were growing up. You know, you take the goldfish and you pour it in the toilet and you flush it down and have a funeral for it, and you go about your business. But let me tell you, when I looked at this little girl and she said I had to flush it down the toilet, I didn't just hear I had to flush it down the toilet. I heard her tone. I saw her facial expression. I heard her, and this little girl was in a level of grief. Like she was hurt, like she was bothered that her goldfish died and she had to flush it down the toilet. It wasn't funny to her. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh. And so again, whatever God allowed me to deliver that message to that little girl at that time, all of a sudden you see the other hands go up, and these are, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, and they're saying, oh, my dad died, my mom died, my uncle died, my grandpa died, my uncle, you know, all these. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like here I am in your career day and I'm having a conversation with these children and they're expressing to me that this sense of loss, this sense of grief. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So again, I don't even know what the Holy Spirit allowed me to say, but I delivered the messages to that class and we moved on and finished up. And so as they transitioned out of the class, the teacher who was overseeing the room, she says, you know what? We don't have time for these social emotional conversations. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, we're focused on, you know, testing and test scores and behavior and all this for these elementary school students, right? That's like 200 students there. And she's like, we don't have time for these kind of conversations. She says, I'm grieving. She's like, my dad passed in September and I'm, you know, grieving over my dad. And then I'm concerned about my mom, who's 81, who's raised all of us children and took care of my dad. And now what's next for my mom, who's 81? And I just sat there like, you gotta be kidding me, God. Like, grief is such a real life conversation. And do we really create the space to have those kind of talks, right? Now, I could relate again because, you know, I was in this transition the last 6 years of my dad passing away in 2019 and all the stuff that I went through to maintain my ability to be even on the radio in front of you. Because when my dad transitioned, I said out of my mouth that I'm done. Now, saying that I'm done, that my dad died and I'm done, you wouldn't think anything of it, right? You would think that's okay. Well, that's what most people would probably say when a parent passes away. That's what comes out of our mouth. That's where our mind goes. And literally for a few days, I was ready to quit. I was ready to quit the radio, the TV broadcasting school. I was ready to quit my advocacy work. I was ready to quit my radio shows. I was literally just ready to just go crawl in a dark hole and just be done with life. Like I'm done. Like I literally meant like I'm done. And I didn't realize that by saying that my mind, my subconscious mind, started to collect evidence to prove to myself that I was done. But for some reason, a few days later, I caught myself because I didn't want to quit school. it was May. I was done in September. So I'm like, I don't want to quit. I don't want to pay this. I'm on my not post 9/11. Like, I'm not trying to get this money back. So if I quit, then what's the consequence of quitting school? I didn't want to do that. And then I realized, wait, Farron, you can't quit. Like, you have work to do. You got this inherited gene. You got this sickle cell trait gene from your dad. You're born for this conversation. So you have work to do. You can't quit. So now I'm battling in my mind. I want to quit, but I got work to do. I want to quit, but I got work to do. And in that week of his transition, I had to clean up his apartment, get rid of all of his stuff, and get it done before the first. I would have to pay rent into June. So we hurried up and cleaned up his apartment. In that week, I took like, I don't even think I took a day off of school. I think I took, because we had Fridays off. So I don't even think I took a day off. And I pushed through it. And I can tell you, I can articulate it to you today, because over the last 6 years of the work that I've done to get my mind back on and focused on life, that for about 2.5 years, I was struggling with that I'm done, right? And in that grief process that I was going through, I killed off a lot of friendships. I had an attitude. I mean, I was not a good person to be around. And I didn't even realize that my short temper and my attitude and my behavior and my body language was because of the loss of my dad. And most people would be like, yeah, of course. I mean, it makes sense. But I knew that there was something going on with me emotionally. And it was like, what is this? And so I can tell you, during that year, I graduated from the TV Broadcasting Academy, the only person to have completed the radio and TV broadcasting school with a 90 or above percentage in all categories. So my name is on there with the gold placards on 2 different boards, because I was the first person out of their creation of 1983 that actually completed both of those curriculums with a 90%. And I was proud of that. But I was like, no, there's something still going on with my heart. And so I went to the VA. I asked for some grief classes, for some mental health support. And I ended up taking one of the grief courses. I think it was about 10 weeks of grief counseling. And I pushed through that, because what I understood in my journey is that, principles, right? If you understand principles are not conceptual. Principles are distinctions and ways that we are used by when we live life, right? So we're used by principles right now that are probably corrupted, and it has us behave a certain way when we're engaging with people in life. So it's not that always the principles are positive. Some of them are negative. You could be used by anger. You could be used by disrespect. You could be used by frustration, right? You could be used by those. So when things happen to you in your life, that's your go-to. Oh, you disrespect me. Like, so you're being used by disrespect, because I can't show you disrespect in the world. There's disrespect by the tree. Like, it's not in nature, right? So these principles, that means that we're used by these, and a lot of them are feelings and emotions, right? So when I understood that, I'm like, let me go to these classes so that I could find some principles. And I did. And the grief counseling definitely helped me get a better understanding of what I was dealing with, because there was times that I would just cry. There was times that I just feel like I missed my dad, and I didn't, play some music or what. And so I realized that what I was doing, these other people in the class was doing the same things in their own version, right? So we all, we grieve differently, but very similar, right? Just depends on where you are in those phases. So I took those classes, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. Okay, I got a better sense, and I'm gonna be okay. However, I was like, you know what? I looked at a show that me and my dad did, and we were talking about what it is to be human and destiny, and we had these words. My show's called Wordplay, and so we did that episode. I rewatched that episode, and I finally heard my dad from a different perspective, from a different version. And I realized that my dad, he was a believer. He was a kingdom citizen. He had his problems in life. He had health problems, of course, but he was always at church. He was always talking about God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus. And so when I looked at what he was saying to me at that show in 2018, I realized, man, my dad was showing me how to live a sinless life. Like, a lot of people think this walk with Christ is a perfect walk. We strive to be perfect, but my dad was an example to me that this is how you live a sinless life. You practice sinning less. And so as I sat with that interview, I saw me and my dad do, and I was looking at inland life. And then I started looking at, well, how much time do I have left? How much time do I, like, how old am I going to be? And my grandson was born 2 weeks after my dad passed. So I had this emotional roller coaster of, I'm feeling good one day because my grandson is here. And then one day I'm in the dark with my dad. So I'm on this roller coaster ride of life, if I could describe it that way. And I started looking at, well, how much time I got? How old am I going to be when I pass? How old is Aiden going to, how old is my daughter's? Like, then I got started to worry about my own life mortality. And then I remembered, you know what? I was in church before. I grew up in church, probably since I was born, because my grandfather was a reverend and a pastor. So I was born into this conversation. And so I walked away from church at 21 years old. And here I am at 49. And I'm like, you know what, God? Oh man, you are the God of my grandparents, of my mom and my dad and family members. I'm like, I've heard that this is not about a religion. I heard that this is not about religious aspects of life. I heard it's about a relationship. So I said, you know what, God, I want to come find you for myself. I want a relationship with you for myself. That was 49. And so I spent the last 6 years still at it, developing my spiritual journey, my walk, discovered a lot of things about myself in the Word that transpired, transitioned over from my life experience into the Word. I found, biblical principles. I found stories in the Bible, and I'm like, okay, this is making sense. And what I was experiencing a level of peace, right? But at the same time, my subconscious mind is like, no, man, let's quit for a year. Like, let's just take a year off. Let's take a year off from radio. Let's just shut down and take a year off. But I pushed past. I was doing radio shows. I was doing interviews. Sometimes I'd start an interview and I didn't want to talk to the person. Sometimes I would sit there and but force myself to even engage in the interview because I really didn't care. My heart was really like checking out. That's like how deep I was in that grief. And then all of a sudden I just started looking, and then I realized that, you know what? The Bible are also principles. Those passages, those stories, all the messages and the parables that Jesus Christ that he shared about the sower and the seed and the vine, like that all started to make sense to me. And I heard people say, you know what, Farron, you got to get knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, right? You got to get wisdom from the Word. Like that's the process. You got to get your knowledge, you got to get your understanding, and the wisdom is you take the knowledge and understanding and you apply it to your life, and then you practice the Word, live it. And I'm like, okay. But when I went to MOR, the Ministry of Reconciliation, I heard that it's not just your knowledge and understanding and the wisdom, but you got to get comprehension. So when you read the Bible and you get the thous, those, and the they, and then you got all these parables, and you got to, you listen to these, reading these stories and all these passages about Moses and all these things. It's like, now I'm looking for comprehension. Like, what is that? What are they saying? Like, what does it mean? Like, oh, okay. Then pastor's like, you know what? You gotta put your life in the Word. You don't just read it for the stories. You gotta put your life and look at how that looks in your life. And when I did that, that was what they call the revelation. So when you get the knowledge and you get the understanding and you get the comprehension and you get the revelation, then you can apply that wisdom to your life. And I can tell you, I don't have it all figured out. I still got a lot more work to do, but I can tell you that my life has opened up since I've been in church. And what I realized is I was feeding my soul with the mental health and the personal development classes. Like I was feeding my soul, but my spirit was starving. I wasn't feeding my spirit being. And so I balanced it out. I balanced out my life with the spiritual conversation, and I balanced it out with the personal development and the cognitive behavior and the grief. And I have all these different tools, Caldwell's education. I have all these different tools, and now, I'm building this. Imagine a toolbox that has, 100 tools in it, right? Now, some of those tools still got the plastic on there. If I look in the toolbox, there's some tools that I haven't used yet that I've been only using of what matters to me at this moment of my life, right? So there are still some tools that I haven't applied, like a toolbox. But the ones that I have used, let me tell you, they have been effective. And what I realized is like I don't want my soul to lead my life. I already know what I'm gonna get if I let my soul. If I live from my mind, will, and emotions, I'm gonna be all jacked up, and I know what that feels like. And so what I did was I realized that I'm a spirit being. I possess a soul, and I have a mind, will, and emotions, and I have this body that I get to experience and talk to you and touch stuff in the flowers and all that. That's what my body does, right? So if I put that in order, some people say mind, body, soul. I'm not here to say which is wrong for you, but I'm saying for me, when I put it in an order, because God does things in order, I'm like, you know what? If I'm a spirit, then I have a soul and I have a body. So then that's how I'm going to say it out of my mouth. I'm a spirit being, I have a soul, and I have a body. And then I looked at it a little bit deeper when you start talking about mental health and those other conversations. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I have a spirit, I have a soul, but the soul has a mind, will, and emotions. Oh, wait a minute. But the mind has a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. So then, wait a minute. So then I have a spirit, I have a soul, but I have a mind, and I have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, and I have a body. So then I expanded that view for myself, and I started looking at each one of those. And I can tell you today, I'm in a way better place around this grief conversation. I now live my life. I filter what the world has to say through my personal development, through the cognitive behavior, all that grief stuff. And I take all that grief stuff after I flush out what the world says about, because the world has a lot of opinions. After I flush out what the world says about it for what Farron has to say about it, then I have to take what I say about it, and I filter all that through the tools, the principles that I've applied to my life for my soul. And then I take that and I filter that through the word. And I can tell you, like a filtering system, by the time I take those conversations from the cognitive behavior and the personal development and even Caldwell's and the grief, I could tell you a lot of that stuff lines up with the word. It just may not be the same language. So then I saw that, well, wait a minute, a lot of the things that the world is using came from the Bible. Those are principles. Maybe they might change the word. Instead of saying repent, some may say turn and change your ways. Right. So when I saw the language, I'm like, oh man, like this is the same thing in the Bible. So I'm like, okay, cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna live my life and filter my life through what the word has to say. And that has been a blessing. I have found another level of peace. I'm still here. I'm still on the radio. I'm still doing my advocacy work. I'm still maintaining. And what I can tell you before I complete this segment is there are in the Bible, they're called Beatitudes. And the first Beatitude is the kingdom of God is for those who are poor in spirit. Blessed for those who are poor in spirit. That's for the kingdom. I'm badgering that. But that's when I saw that was the first Beatitude, that the kingdom of God of heaven is for those who are poor in spirit. Well, guess what? I could admit to myself that I had, as I said, I was feeding my soul, but I was poor in spirit. And so that allowed me to then put my life in order. Those Beatitudes helped me understand that, yeah, you're on the right track, because I came to God because not for fire insurance, but I came because I was poor in spirit. I was dealing with my own life. I was trying to control the outcomes of my life. Like I got to maintain this. Like, how am I going to stay alive? And when am I going to die? And that was me being poor in spirit. So my dad's passing, allowed me to look at God, look for God, and be like, you know what, man, I want to find you. And I was poor in spirit. And then the second beatitude is blessed for those who are mourning, because they'll be comforted. So not only did I admit that I was poor in spirit, but I was also in mourning. And so for those first two beatitudes for me that I got this is 2026. So that was probably late 2025, like December, November. I got that for myself. And I realized that, well, wait a minute, man. Like, I am actually in a pretty good state of mind right now, because I really realized that those beatitudes was actually what I was looking for. Like, those beatitudes is actually what helped me maintain and stay alive. And if you go and read those, there's a total of 8 of them. I went and I looked at all 8 of the beatitudes, and I was like, you know what, man, I actually experienced each one of those in this last 6 years of doing Bible study and being in church and living life and applying those principles to my life. Like, I've touched on all 8 of those beatitudes, and I'm like, oh man, this is something important. And so now I'm looking at the beatitudes, because your be attitude, what are your attitudes? And then we go back to what I started in this conversation. What are you being used by? Sometimes we're used by our attitude, and your attitude could be, I was told my attitude was a little bit funky at times, right? So when you look at your attitude, what are you being used by? Are you being used by those frustrations and upsets and disappointments and shames? Is that what's driving you? Sometimes that's what drives us. That might be the first thing that comes out of your heart, is the upset. But I've learned to know that voice in my head, but when my mouth is closed and that voice is chattering and giving me opinions about myself and about life and about people and being cynical, and this is just the way the world is and it ain't going to get better, that wasn't Farron. Farron is the one observing that noise, observing that chatter. Try it for yourself. Close your mouth and just say, see what's going on in your mind with your mouth closed. Yeah, that voice right there. That was the voice I'm talking about. So when I learned about that voice, I was like, wait a minute. No, that's not me. So Matthew 5, chapter 5, starts at verse 3 are the Beatitudes. And the first one is, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And the second one is Matthew chapter 5, verse 4. It says, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And that's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at today. I'm living through those two, and I actually went back to the VA, and I'm actually in a group, a grief group, support group right now. I think I'm in my 5th session, and it's just amazing to be in that support group, because I'm with these gentlemen who are older than me. We're talking about 60, 70 years old that just lost their wife, they lost their spouse, they lost their husband, or they lost their son, the grieving from divorce. And so I'm here in this grief support group, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I know that this is important, because I only mentioned my dad. I'm also in the level of, I never really dealt with my grandfather, right? My grandfather passed in 2020, right? So my dad in 2019, my grandfather in 2020, and then my dog in 2022. So I've got a lot, in that grief category, a lot going on. And out of these last 6 years, I finally found peace, with my dad. Like, you know what, man, I appreciated him. My dad loved me. I made up a story at 5 years old that my dad didn't love me. And I lived like that for 35 years until I was 40, when I took those classes. And I realized that my perception of my father was all corrupted, that he did love me. Now, he did the best he could with what he had. He was 20 years old when I was born. He was a baby. I had my first daughter at 23. So now my dad was 20. So then how could I hold all of that upset that he didn't love me and he didn't take care of me when he did the best he could with what they had. And just getting that other side of that view, of that perception, of that interpretation of my father, I was able to get my dad back before he passed. I reconciled with my dad before he passed. I can only imagine what it feels like to have a level of resentment or regret of that parent when your parent passes. I know what it feels like to have resentment and regret, but for a parent, I don't even know what that would feel like. I know it could be hurtful. I know it could be, you could be in a space of hurting or upset, or now you're disappointed because you didn't get a chance to say what you needed to say to them. But I can tell you, it's not too late. It might take a little bit extra to get past that resentment and regret. You might have to go and get a piece of paper, and just write out what you would say to your mother or father today. And then just pour your heart on that piece of paper. Find somewhere to go. If you got to go to their gravesite, or go to a space in your room, or wherever you got to go to the park, and someone maybe that you have confidence in, and read that document out loud. Read that paper out loud. Maybe you might have to read it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Cry as you're reading it. Cry through it. Cry. Keep reading it over and over, and you'll see maybe about that 5th time that you read it, the tears will be gone, and you'll be at peace because you've been able to get that stuff out of your heart. You get to get that stuff out of your mind. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. I almost had a level of regret with my dad. Almost because he passed away over the weekend, and we didn't find him until it was like 4 days later. And so my mind tried to beat me up and say, well, you didn't call him. You didn't call him. You didn't call him before he passed away. You didn't talk to him. But I talked to him that week. But my mind was like, but you didn't call him. Remember, you was going to call him on Monday. You was going to call him on Tuesday. You didn't call him on Friday. You didn't call him on Saturday. You didn't call him on Sunday. And I remember when we found my dad, when I went to go see my dad, I grabbed his cell phone and it was unlocked. And I remember when I had scrolled through it before, but I remember my cousin said that her and my aunt, my dad's sister, was on the phone with him that day, like that morning on Friday. They talked to him that morning on Friday. So I grabbed his phone and I powered the phone on, I looked at it, and I started looking at the call logs. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Here's the call that he was on the phone. He was on the phone with them at this time. And then there was a space where everything else was either a missed call, no more outgoing calls, just missed calls. There was missed calls on Friday. There was missed calls on Saturday. There was missed calls on Sunday. There was missed calls on Monday. The caregiver's missed calls was there. And she was the one that found him on Tuesday morning. So when I challenged myself, because now I'm living from these principles, so I have to challenge I've challenged my mind. I have to challenge those thoughts. I have to challenge how I'm thinking to myself. I have to challenge that voice in my head. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. If that was the last time he was on the phone, and it's Tuesday when we find him, if I would have called him Friday night, was he going to answer the phone? No. If I called him on Saturday, was he going to answer the phone on Saturday night or Saturday? No. Sunday? No. Monday? No. Tuesday? No. So then what am I holding on to? What am I holding on as a resentment or regret that I didn't talk to my dad? When I know in my heart that we were complete, I know that if I ever said anything to him and I gave him attitude, I would call right back and be like, you know what, Dad, please forgive me. I didn't mean to act like that. You didn't. It's not this. I'm upset about something that's not even about you. And I was taking it out on you. I know I've done that. That's how I get to be with my dad. So when I looked at the phone log, I'm like, no way, man. You can't carry that. You can't carry that weight that you didn't call him. And that was the last thing that my mind tried to hold on to as a regret or resentment to myself. So I'm saying that you can still do that work. You can still heal. And if your parents are alive today, please reconcile. And I went to my mom and dad for forgiveness. I went to them to ask them to forgive me at 40 years old, for them to forgive me. I live by Malachi 4, 5 and 6. And 6 is that we can return our hearts of our fathers back to the children and the hearts of our children back to their father. Or let there be a curse on the land. Y'all know that? And it's also in Luke 1:17. It's in the Old Testament and Malachi, and then it's also in the New Testament. And what the Holy Spirit showed that for me is that was what I did. As a child, I went to my parents and said, please forgive me for how I treated you. Now, I didn't say that behaviors changed. They didn't change. I didn't say that I held on to any of the stuff that I made up about them that I thought was true, that how they treated me. No, because when you transform those stories became beautiful stories. Like they had me at 19, 20 years old, 18, 20. Like they did the best they could. My mom provided, my dad, he loved me, but I didn't get that till 40 though. So imagine how I lived and treated them from 5 to 40, from 8 years old to 40. And so if we tell the truth, we do have some oughts with our parents. And I'm not saying that whatever happened to you wasn't, it didn't happen. But then what I did was when I asked them to forgive me, I told my parents, I made up this story. And my dad was like, son, I just want to spend time with you, man. I'm just want to, and like, he wasn't even bothered. I carried that weight for 35 years that he didn't love me. And when I talked to him at 40, he was like, man, I just want to spend time with you. My mom never abandoned me. It was 1978, latchkey kid. I'm a latchkey kid. I'm in the era where you had to walk home by yourself with the key on your neck and get in the apartment and don't do nothing. Don't turn the oven on. Don't cook. Don't blump, blump. I'm from that era. And some of us grew up too fast. Some of us, whatever that was that you say to yourself about that latchkey kid era. But my parents did the best they could with what they had. And when I talked to my dad and my mom about how they grew up with their parents, it made even more sense that some of the stuff that I needed as a child, they didn't even have it to give. They didn't even know to give it because they didn't get it. And unless you do this kind of work and you heal yourself and get some more knowledge and understanding, some comprehension and some revelation and some wisdom, then you might be in the same boat too with your children and your parents. This wasn't supposed to be a grief conversation or a reconciliation, but I guess this is what today's show is about. That you can reconcile that relationship. You can go to your parent for forgiveness. I'm not saying that it's not getting them off the hook. That forgiveness, that self-forgiveness is for you. It's for you. It's for you to have peace. And by you going to them for forgiveness and asking to forgive you, guess what that does for that parent, that father, that mother? They're going to walk away from that conversation and be like, wow, that's different. I've never expected that from my child. Where did that come from? Right? So now you just planted that seed in them to now they might start to look at themselves on how they was treated and treated you. And it may not happen that day. It may not happen that week. It may not happen that year, but you have now planted that seed of forgiveness. And if you further the work around self-forgiveness and forgiveness, guess what that does for you? It starts to heal your heart, that your heart won't be as hard and your subconscious mind will start to now download new information about forgiveness, about karma. There's no such, I don't live by karma. Karma is unforgiveness. Karma could be making us sick. You're holding on to a story of an upset and you're hoping that person, something bad happens to that person. But you're hurting yourself by carrying the karma because you're remembering the story. What is that emotional? That's exhausting to carry karma and hope that person eats the poison when you're the one eating the poison. So it doesn't get that person off the hook. It doesn't, take away of what happened, but it definitely can alter what you made it mean about you. That I'm not good enough, that I'm not worth it, that I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm on my own, I don't belong. There's something wrong with me. When I was able to look at that for what it was, man, there was nothing wrong with me. I wasn't on my own. And I definitely belonged to my family. But a mind of a child, a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, 11, 14. Come on. What do we know about time at those ages? What do you know about relationships at those ages? But what we don't understand is that the brain is developing inside the womb. And then when birth happens, that child is developing and that mind is giving meaning to life. That brain is going to give a meaning. If you don't pick me up when I'm crying as a baby, guess what? Then my mind is already wired to make it mean something. So I might cry harder, or I got to find or it might be a different cry. So when you pick me up, when I cry like this, and then you pick me up, then I know what cry to use. And then you know what cry to pick me up, right? That's communication without language. So imagine as a child that some of the stuff that we thought that happened to us emotionally wasn't really emotional. It was just that my parents didn't have the knowledge about that. They didn't understand about child development. They were children themselves. I'm 56, still trying to figure out what it is to be an adult right now. Like, how could I hold that against them? So I'm asking you, whatever that is with your father or your mother, you could be the one that transforms that relationship. My dad never changed. My mom never changed. I altered how I listened to. I didn't change either, because I'm still the same old. The same OG is still in there. But I made a commitment and I altered my behavior because I found principles that challenge my behavior. The cognitive behavior. For my veteran brothers and sisters, I recommend that. Go to CBT. That was one of the ones that I took, that it took all those stories in my head and I had the challenge. Is that exaggerated? How many of these stories are exaggerated? And I looked and I saw that these stories were exaggerated to the max. But I had so much evidence. I had proof that I was abandoned. I had proof that my dad didn't love me. I had proof that I had all this proof that the girl didn't like me. I had all this proof and evidence and the feelings and the emotions and the body sensations. And you couldn't tell me no. I know that they don't love me. I know there's something wrong with me. I know that I don't belong. I know I'm not good enough. I know I'm not worth it. I got proof. Now, corrupted information. So you might want to go to your parents to find out if they're still alive, and your grandparents, if you got your grandparents still alive, go and ask them, what was life like when you grew up? To your grandparents. How far can you go back? You got aunties and uncles that grew up with your parents, with your mother and father. Go back and find out what was life like in their environment, what they saw. Go ask your grandparents, what was your dad like? What was your mom like when they were children? And you guess what? You get a sense of, wait a minute. It's no wonder we call them generational. They call them generational curses. I call my conversation generational consequences, because those are emotional consequences that get passed on into your own version. And it's real life. And we see the suicide rate. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a patient advocate. But if you look and see the suicide ideation, the numbers, what is going on? I'm proof that those classes can work. I'm proof that the word of God works. Your truth will set you free from what? Your truth is going to set you free from your own stories, from your own lies that you made to yourself. And then with that word, who the Son sets free is free indeed. So I've been transformed by my personal development classes and those other curriculums and principles. But some of the things that I was dealing with, I've been set free from. I've been delivered from it. I've been freed up from it. Some of the stuff I have a better understanding. So now I can check my behavior, because now I got to practice. I got to practice perseverance. I got to practice self-control. I got to practice kindness. I got to practice love. Like those things I got to practice. But some of the things that I was dealing with are gone. Like they're gone. They're gone because I used the word. So whatever you have to find out, but you got to find something that you can challenge your mind up against, outside of how you think about yourself and other people. Because you're always going to be right. I said it on my show yesterday. your mind is always going to be right because it's trying to protect you, to keep you safe. You wonder why life always turns out the way it turns out, because you're the one making the decisions, perception patterns, memory patterns, and action patterns. You're going to do what you did 10 years ago to survive that same feeling of what it felt like to be disappointed. When it feels like disappointment's coming, when it feels like shame is coming, when it feels like embarrassment coming, you're going to feel like I gotta go do this. So yeah, that's your mind. That's your subconscious mind. That's where we have our deep meetings with ourselves, the subconscious mind, the heart of us. That's where you go have the meetings like, you know what, man? Oh, last time I did that, man, I was embarrassed. Oh no, we don't want to feel. Do we want to feel that? No, we don't want to feel that ever. I don't want to feel that ever. That's what I said about my dad and my mom. I don't ever want to feel that pain in my gut again. And then I began to behave a different way to avoid that pain. Now I'm pretending like I got no pain. Some people say you put a mask on. However you describe it in life, we see how we talk about it. We talk about it, but do we talk from it? Sometimes you got to put your life in that conversation. You can't dance around it and describe it. No, sometimes you got to be willing to put there it is right there. Thank you, Holy Spirit. You got to be willing to put your life in the conversation. If you're not willing, then it's going to be conceptual. It's going to sound good. It's going to sound good for them, but not for me. Oh, that sounds good for him, but that's what you're probably saying right now. Oh, that sounds good for him, but not for me. I can't do none of that. I can't do that word. Oh, no. Yeah, because you're not willing. You're not willing. Sometimes it feels good to have a little chaos. I feel alive when there's chaos. Chaos, though. Why do we have to have chaos to feel alive? Why do I have to go off on somebody to feel like I'm in control? Or do I have to treat people a particular way to feel better than them? Do we have to be like that? No. So this is just one aspect of my life that I talk about, especially with EQ Athletics. So that goes back to our curriculum with EQ Athletics that I get to deliver some of these messages with. It's very, very important conversations. And I hope that you heard something for yourself. I really hope that you take some time to just self-reflect, self-examine yourself. For my veterans, brothers and sisters, or family members, that work will soften your heart. It will soften your heart. I said I wasn't going to be here for too long, but it's already an hour. That it can soften your heart. That work, those principles can soften that perception, and you get just another piece of that puzzle, and you realize that, man, no wonder my mom couldn't give me that emotional support, because she didn't have it from her dad or her mom, or she made it mean something else. Like then you start making like, wait a minute, man, my heart is corrupted. My mind is corrupt. We download, and you can't, like a computer, you can't just go get a new hard drive if you got viruses on your computer, right? You either got to get some software to clean it up, right? Or you got to buy a whole nother computer. But we can't get a whole nother subconscious mind. We can't get a whole nother heart. Not the heart that's down here that's pumping the blood. I'm talking about your heart of man, the subconscious mind. You can't get another subconscious mind. So what do? You got to go get more information. You got to challenge those thoughts. You got to challenge those ideas. You got to challenge those stories up against something outside of your own self. Find something that you have confidence in. If you use the word trust, find something that you trust. Try it out. If it don't work, go find something else. If it's not CBT for you, it might be something else. That's just what I used. And I'm still inside of those conversations because I don't have it all figured out. But what if you can just interrupt the willingness to die by the willingness to live? Right? The willingness to live. And that's going to be the second part of this conversation. How I got to at least the part of the willingness to live. Those thoughts may never go away. The suicide, yes, sometimes I still wake up dark. I still wake up. You can't act like you can't pretend like you're fine and you're not. Sometimes admitting and being honest with yourself that I don't feel well today, and then I need to go find something. That's why I have these principles, right, for my soul, right? It wasn't wrong that I was feeding my soul. I'm not telling you it was wrong, because what that did was it softened my heart. So if I wake up in the morning and I'm in a dark space and I'm not even looking at the Word of God, or I'm not even trying to go to the church part, guess what I have though? I have cognitive behavior. I have the therapy. I have Caldwell's education. I have the other personal development education, that my mind could then go to something else that's been in my heart that say, hey, no, wait a minute, man. Remember? Yeah, you can't sit here and just be in the dark all day. Oh, I did learn that, you know what? Sometimes I just do have to be here and sit in the dark and let it pass. Sometimes when I'm in grief, I got to go sit down and just let that grief pass. Sometimes you got to experience those feelings and emotions. But if you can experience those feelings and emotions in your right mind, then your body can do what it do while you're sitting there, and you can let those things pass and then get up and do what you need to do. And that's what I learned. When I'm in grief and I'm out of it, I gotta get back to my life. That's how I maintain myself to be in front of you, because I realize that when I have those emotions, I have those feelings, when they pass, I got to get back. I'm not quitting. And that's interrupting the willingness to die. Interrupted it. And how? By this conversation we're going to have up next. So I'm going to play this PSA right here, and then we're going to come back and we're going to touch on the awareness month of the rhabdomyolysis. I got some stuff. I'm going to put up my website so you can look in. I don't want to just be talking about it and you can't see nothing. I should have actually brought up that stuff. I'll put it up about my inspirational reads too. But yeah, we're going to play some PSAs real quick, and then I'm going to wrap it up with the awareness month of rhabdomyolysis and sickle cell trait and play these PSAs. All right. I appreciate you for hanging in there. I hope you've heard something for yourself. If you have any questions, hit me up at Farron Dozier. Again, I'm not a therapist. I'm a patient advocate. I'm just delivering the messages that I went through, that God showed me, that now you can take these and share your testimony. And maybe that might be enough for somebody else to look in their life and be like, you know what, man, I don't want to live like this either. I don't want to pretend like I'm okay and I'm not. As men, we suffer in silence. That's how we language it. A lot of, I don't know, women, I'm sure women do too, but I'm not a woman, so I'm not going to generalize and speak for women. But for men, I know that we suffer in silence. And suffering in silence means we don't have the room to express ourselves. We don't have the room to say, I'm hurting. We don't have room to cry, because you can't cry. You can't do this as a male. You got to be strong. You got to be proud. You got to blah, blah. That's exhausting, emotionally exhausting, to be a human being and you can't express yourself because you're labeled as a man that can't be A, B, C, and D. You can't do that. You can't cry. Let me tell you, that doesn't work. It might have worked in the olden days. Did it though? Did it work in the olden days? No, it didn't work, because it's still being passed on. It's still being passed on to generations, and our children today are dealing with it. The same thing that we dealt with, they're dealing with the same thing on another level. On another level of it. And if you recognize that, you can clean up your life, go back and help someone else. Your story might be the story that softens that person's heart. You might plant the seed, or you might water a seed. But we know God does the work. But you might be a planter or a water. You might water a seed in somebody's life. That might just be enough for them to be like, you know what, man? I might need to take a look at my life. This is the Farron Dozier Show, the Military Broadcast Radio Network, right here, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific Time. Check out these PSAs. Zetovia salve, made from natural and organic ingredients, good for inflammation, poor circulation, hemorrhoids, yeast infection, lip sores, dry coughs, eye pain, minor cuts and bruises, and ready to purchase at botanicaherbalco.com. botanicaherbalco.com. Botanica herbalco.com.
Muchos de nosotros nos vemos afectados por la enfermedad de células falciformes a diario y un número creciente simplemente no nos damos cuenta. Los impactos de esta enfermedad afectan a todas las personas y en especialmente a las personas de color y con antecedentes diversos. Estar en servicio conmigo y con los demás a medida que creamos una mayor conciencia sobre cómo identificar y dirigir el tratamiento de los rasgos de células falciformes y ayudar a las familias a saber cómo superar el trastorno de células falciformes. WDCONS.
Do you remember studying sickle cell in biology class? What's the Count on Sickle Cell Trait Prevention is here to bring you awareness, education, and prevention conversations around the risk factors of this inherited gene. Visit WDCONSCT.org. All right, welcome back to the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. Again, thank you for listening in for that first hour. I told myself that I wasn't going to be here that long, but there's a conversation. I don't know, how this is going to play out, but I thank the network for allowing me to have my show here, my military show. You can catch me on Tuesdays now at KCA Radio. That's 106.5 FM and 1050 AM in the Inland Empire, or at kcaradio.com. We stream that as well. Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Similar show here. I do more of my military talks here. The other show right now, we're doing a conversation about what it is to be a male man. And so I'm working with Mr. Walker and my partner, Charlie. We are having these conversations because we want to create this kind of space in real time. All right. We don't just want to be streaming online. We want to have people come together, sit down in front of each other and have a conversation. So we're pushing that topic right now. But you can be a guest over there too. Like I said, I'm open to be a guest. You can be a guest over there. And then today I was also on the Beyond 2D show with Jessica. So that show's on every second and third Wednesday, Beyond 2D. Over there, I get to kind of what I did here, just kind of express myself. We go through different words. Sometimes we use words out of context, right? Sometimes you got to get a dictionary, Sometimes you got to go grab a dictionary and make sure that you're actually using the word that best describes what you're trying to say, right? If you can do that, then your emotional state, who you are as a person, now you get to say what you mean versus describe it. And sometimes that could be a better effective communication, or understanding how other people think. Well, we grew up in a different environment. So the word that means to me in my environment might not be the same word that definition that you use it for, but it could be the same word, right? So we know that the English language is something else these days. And so, sometimes, like I said, I learned that you got to grab a dictionary and make sure that the words that you are using, especially in your feelings and emotion, that's the best word that describes how you feel. All right, so I'm going to drop this over here. Let's see, we're going to play this out. We're going to make this work. So I'm going to drop over here, and then I'm going to bring up my page. All right, so again, I'm a sickle cell trait advocate for rhabdomyolysis as well. And this is an opportunity that I was given last year to be on an investigative report about rhabdomyolysis and sickle cell trait and the public health issue that people are having health complications, exercising, collapsing and dying from sudden death. And unfortunately, the sickle cell trait, some are carriers of that trait or other inherited genes. Sickle cell trait is not the only one. It's more to it than just sickle cell trait and rhabdo, right? So, but and anyone can experience rhabdomyolysis. You could be at the gym, you could be mountain climbing, you could be on the track playing football, basketball. We've seen that people experience rhabdo from dehydration, from heat exhaustion. I'm going to show you, there are a lot of things that can trigger rhabdomyolysis. And for me, the sickle cell trait was my connector to that conversation. So I'm going to play this piece of this documentary investigative report so you can hear what they say. And then I'm going to go to the website and just kind of show you what I've learned and what we talk about around rhabdomyolysis. This is the Farron Dozier Show right here on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. Check this out.
As the number of Americans seeking high-intensity workouts increases, a rare but potentially life-threatening condition has become a concern for workout warriors. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. It's a term you might not know, rhabdomyolysis. According to the Cleveland Clinic, every year about 26,000 people in the U.S. develop the dangerous condition. It occurs when muscle tissue breaks down and releases a damaging protein into the blood.
While rhabdo, as it's commonly called, can occur after any kind of muscle damage, it's often caused by intense physical exertion, particularly in hot climates. Research shows cases have increased over the last 2 decades, one study reporting a 10-fold jump between the years of 2000 and 2019. Today, we want to educate you on the signs and symptoms to help potentially save a life.
While marathon runners and fitness newcomers alike are impacted, reporter Heather Graff explains how those serving in the military are particularly at risk.
I just known early on that she was a special kid. This is her.
As Kenya Evans tells it, her daughter Kiera had long dreamed of joining the armed forces. Her heart set on following in her father and brother's footsteps.
I was very proud, and I just supported her on her decision.
In 2019, at 20 years old, the Louisiana native enlisted in the Navy.
She just was happy to do it.
But weeks later, a tragic and unexpected incident at boot camp near Chicago. Kiera collapsed during a physical fitness assessment.
They said that she was in the hospital. She was in critical condition. And I'm asking them what happened. And they said that she fell during the 1.5-mile run.
Within hours, Kiera was gone.
How do you even begin to process that as a mother?
You don't. So I didn't get a chance to be by her bedside. I didn't get a chance to tell her I love her. I didn't get a chance to do the things that mommies do.
According to Kiera's autopsy report, her cause of death was exertional rhabdomyolysis.
Do you think branches of the military are pushing these recruits too hard and too far?
Yes, they definitely is. Nobody signs up to die. That's not what they signed up for.
The condition is triggered by strenuous exercise that causes skeletal muscles to break down, often during activities like running or heavy lifting. In severe cases, it can lead to kidney failure and even death. Experts say the muscle injury is rare and largely preventable, but recent data from the DoD's Defense Health Agency showed an overall increase in cases in the military between 2019 and 2023. That final year, more than 500 service members were diagnosed, with nearly half hospitalized.
It is definitely an issue, and it's out there.
Dennis Schofield is a research exercise physiologist. He used to work for the U.S. Army Research Institute of Environmental Medicine, where he studied the risk factors for rhabdomyolysis.
We know that the Marine Corps maintains the highest PT standards, and it shows consistently, more than 2 times the exertional rhabdomyolysis risk than the Air Force or the Navy. And the Army's up there too.
In fact, according to the Defense Health Agency data, cases in the Army increased by nearly 30% over the 5-year surveillance period. But across all branches, recruits had the highest risk of exertional rhabdo, with rates 6 to 10 times greater than all other service members.
We have recruits coming from high school. They may or may not be that physically fit, and most of the training occurs in the summer months.
That last point, an important one, as 3/4 of rhabdo cases occur during warmer months of the year.
So you're much less likely to see it in someone who's been training and who's built up that tolerance.
Dr. Derek Fine of Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine says early recognition and treatment are crucial, with symptoms ranging from urine discoloration to nausea to muscle swelling and soreness.
Is there a sense of urgency?
Yes, because you don't know how severe it is, and if you get it early, you can usually prevent all the complications. And the main complication is really kidney injury or kidney failure.
According to the Cleveland Clinic, kidney injury occurs in up to half of rhabdo cases.
My kidneys are at 50% each.
It's a complication Former Sergeant First Class Farron Dozier experienced firsthand while serving in the Army in 2006.
Everything was spinning like a million miles an hour.
It happened during an Army physical fitness test, right after the final sprint of the 2-mile run. Farron was rushed to the hospital.
Physically, I was in a very bad state. I had severe muscle damage. I could barely walk. But the mindset of a soldier, you don't complain.
He survived the ordeal and tried to get back to his old self, but says ongoing health problems ultimately led to his medical retirement in 2013.
I had a lot of mental and physical pain at that time.
And the pain is still with him today.
I'd never recovered fully. I still deal with the vertigo. If I move too fast or I move my head too fast, I could still trigger it.
Farron has since dedicated his life to spreading education and awareness about rhabdo.
Anybody heard of Rhabdo before?
Engaging military personnel, athletes, and youth nationwide.
You can experience it, or you might be the person that saves that person's life.
Given the intense mental and physical requirements, Farron says it's a conversation that's especially important in the military.
There's a lot of push-ups, there's a lot of mountain crawls. It's the repetitive drills.
Soldiers and military personnel are our number one human asset. And so figuring out ways to protect that so that they can be combat ready when they finish training is super important.
The Defense Health Agency declined to speak on camera, but provided a statement saying in part, the military is committed through policy to leverage both exercise and environmental acclimatization for new recruits to minimize both heat casualties and exertional rhabdomyolysis, an important step. As experts say, prevention is key.
It's really about being careful, doing it slowly, starting with a less intense exercise.
I still don't comprehend it.
Kenya says she'll continue to push for accountability.
I'm going to fight for Kiara until my last breath.
Though she knows nothing can bring back her daughter.
It's not a day go by that I don't think about her. My life is not the same. My life will never be the same.
According to Kiara's autopsy report, in addition to exertional rhabdo, sickle cell trait was deemed a significant contributory factor in her death. Kenya says Kiara and her family had only just found out she possessed the trait during a health screening at boot camp. It occurs when a person carries a single gene for sickle cell disease. While most people with the trait show no symptoms, research shows it's associated with a 54% increase in exertional rhabdo, and Black people are particularly at risk. We spoke with Dr. Michael DeBon of Vanderbilt University School of Medicine, who says while we don't fully understand sickle cell trait's connection to rhabdo, two vital organs might be involved.
Individuals with sickle cell trait have a kidney concentration problem. We also know that they may have a higher rate of kidney disease than in the general population. So it could be in the situation of exertion where individual becomes dehydrated, that they're more susceptible to that type of injury, namely rhabdomyolysis.
In 2023, the U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command added a screening recommendation for sickle cell trait due to carriers' increased risk of exertional rhabdo.
The Navy declined to comment on Kiara's case, but provided a statement saying in part, the Navy takes this condition very seriously and along with other military services has devoted a great deal of study to develop prevention, recognition, and treatment protocols.
Still ahead, more.
All right, welcome back to the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. Again, this conversation is very important. If you have any questions, you feel free to reach out to me. So this is when you go to farrond.com, this is what you will see. One of the pages, we got to go across the top and you click on rhabdomyolysis. I got a tab for rhabdomyolysis. So you click on that tab for rhabdomyolysis, and then you will be able to go there. You'll see that video at the very top. And then if you scroll down a little bit, these are some conversations that I've had. This is about a 7-minute talk. Maybe I'll do that on another episode. I met that he was in the Navy himself as well and was going to go to boot camp. Actually, he was already at boot camp, and they did their one of the longest hikes or runs or something, 5-10 mile march or whatever, and he collapsed and was in the hospital, got let go out of boot camp. And then as I was in my transition, going through my health issues, my recruiter, he came into the unit to be with a family member, and then the recruiter asked him, "Well, what about you?" He said, "Oh no, man, I can't. I already been down that road. I got, let go from my sickle cell trait." And he was like, "Wait a minute, I got a buddy that has that." So he connected us. I went and sat with him. At the time, he was with his girlfriend, and they were about to have a baby. And so I said, "Hey, bring your medical paperwork so that I can take a look at it and kind of maybe see what was going on, what the Navy had said about your experience with the rhabdo and sickle cell trait." So we go have lunch, and I, get in the back of the car, and then he gives me the documentation of his medical folder. And as I'm sitting in the back seat, I'm flipping through the pages and I'm scanning. I'm looking for keywords, as military, so I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the keywords, and I find this page that has sickle cell trait / alpha thalassemia minus. And I was like, "Hey, I'm not a genetic counselor or a doctor or anything, but do you know if you have alpha thalassemia trait?" And he was like, "Nah." I said, "Well, man, it's right here in your medical paperwork that the Navy found that you were actually a carrier of not just sickle cell trait, but they found this alpha thalassemia gene. So you might want to go back and get some more tests done and talk to your parents." And so sure enough, he was shocked. His girlfriend was shocked because they're right now having a baby. And so he was able to go back, talk to his parents, get retested. And sure enough, he carried the sickle cell trait and an alpha thalassemia trait, which in that conversation, sometimes we've discovered in my advocacy work that people do carry other inherited genes that may not have been identified, that the electrophoresis can pick up, but then you need to do a complete blood count, CBC, to find out if there's something going on with the red blood cells, right? So with thalassemia trait is a whole nother, it's like my cousin of sickle cell trait. Like that gene is usually in a more of an Asian Mediterranean descent of thalassemia because that combats malaria for their culture, for their ancestry. So the reason why blacks are number one is because Africa in the presence of malaria. So let's get that straight. That's why we're number one, because of the presence of malaria. So our ancestors created that defective gene. The body created that defective gene so that we could survive malaria. Now, every other part of the world, country, they have their own red blood cell condition that combats malaria for their culture. And alpha thalassemia is one of those, right? So that's the combination. So now today it's not a skin color. It's about bloodline. And if you have ancestors in your bloodline that malaria was present in their area, then you could have that gene passed to you, right? So that's what his story was. And I've got more others just similar to that, right? So I did that interview with him. This is me speaking at the military base. Let's play this one real quick. What is that? That's all a minute though. This is one of the times. This is at Camp Roberts. This is where I continue to go. I've been going here for the last 10 years for speaking there at Camp Roberts. So I'm gonna play this 1 minute, almost 2 minute clip. So the school approved that. I went to barracks, went back to sleep to lay down. About 2:30 or so, I started feeling worse. I was throwing up, almost crapped on myself, like I was in a very bad state. Of course, at 16:30, they go back in the barracks, my classmates, and they rushed me back to the hospital that night. The night doctor does some blood work, and he sees that my CKs or my CK levels, creatinine kinase levels, were 12,000. At my age 36, they're supposed to be about 150. So they're 12,000. He also discovered that my kidneys were at 50% each and failing. So they diagnosed me with a condition called rhabdomyolysis. Anybody heard of rhabdo before? What do you know about rhabdo?
Just like overworking your muscles and they start to break down in your bloodstream.
Yeah. Anybody else?
So when we do the pre-screens for applicants, one of those is rhabdomyolysis, and I didn't know what that was until like right now.
So right now,
I know about it because I've read it.
Yeah.
But I just always put no.
Appreciate that. So that's what they diagnosed me with, rhabdo. It took me about 4 days before I could get out of the bed at the hospital bed and walk with the IV machine to the bathroom to pee on my own. Like I had that much muscle damage. took about 2.5 years trying to figure out what happened to me. My doctor back home says, you know what, you just can't run anymore. So I'm like, all right, cool. I've seen people with worse conditions in the military, so I'm like, I can get a profile, do the walk or the bicycle. I don't swim, so I can shake a truck. So I turned that paperwork in to the state. And so that is, again, one of the talks that I do at Camp Roberts. I'm about due to go up there again. This is a Army soldier that I met. She came to the station. This is at KCA Radio. She came in and shared her story. That's about a 10-minute talk. So you can go to the website and listen to those if you would like to. But this is my page that I talk about rhabdomyolysis. There's so much that they're trying to figure out what's causing it, what the risk factors are, especially with sickle cell trait. So I have these things broken down. But then here in part 3, these are the inherited genes associated with rhabdomyolysis. So we've got sickle cell trait is number 1 up there. But people who walk around and may not know that they have a gene called G6PD, a glucose deficiency, that could be a trigger with rhabdomyolysis. And then you have all of these other types of muscle conditions, muscle diseases, muscle disorders that people are walking around with. They may not even know that you are exercising and you could have these inherited genes that could be triggering the experience of rhabdomyolysis. Right. And so I list about 17 different inherited genes on the website that could cause or trigger or be more susceptible of triggering rhabdomyolysis. I can't say that that these are the cause of it, but when the body is under stress, exercise, dehydration, or one of these genes get activated or get triggered, these are the type of genes that you could be carrying and have no idea. And I've met people, I've interviewed people that have had a couple of these and figured out that that was their trigger in rhabdomyolysis. Inherited genes is one, right? But there could be cholesterol medication. There could be, you could be dehydrated. You could have a virus. You could have the flu. You could have a cold. There are different things that can trigger those conversations. This one right here, this is when I was at LA Talk Live back in, I think this is like 2017. I interviewed Dr. O'Connor. He's at the military college right now. He's the one that actually implemented the rhabdo screenings and the sickle cell trait screening to start to protect the soldiers in the Army from these episodes so they can figure out what's going on. So I actually went there and was mailed off my blood work to him. So I contributed to this study for African Americans in the military so they could do a study on the blood and figure out what is going on, why some of us with sickle cell trait have these complications, some don't, right? So that was a part of the study. I appreciate him. I email him, he'll respond to me. We talk, and so I'm doing my part on my end is what I can contribute and help while he's actually putting these policies together and these documentation so that soldiers in the Army can be protected, right? So these are some diagrams. When you Google Rhabdo, you might see some of these these things here. There's a thing about the military and the exertion with rhabdomyolysis. And then this is the health and safety piece that I really talk about mostly is the sudden death, the skeletal muscular disorder, the impact on the body, the inherited genes, the blood work, and then the CDC, what the CDC has to say about that even as well. So that is the basis of the rhabdomyolysis talk. April is Rhabdomyolysis Awareness Month. So this is one of my campaigns. Again, that's where I go out and I speak to the military base, high schools, colleges, wherever I could get a conversation in that allow me to be a part of it. I will, accept that invitation and go and share this message to bring awareness. This is an interview I did, I want to say back in either like 2015 or so. Dr. Pei came on. He's a chiropractor, but he's a holistic doctor. And so there was things that he could not say on the air that we talked about offline, that he gave me some insights about rhabdomyolysis because he was well aware of it because he had some brothers in the military. And so he gave me some insights of some conversations that I was like, that he said, he's like, I can't say that on the air because back then they were seems like they were taking out, holistic doctors because they were healing people, right? And so he was like, I'm not gonna say this on camera, but he did tell me some things offline that was like, oh my goodness, that gave me even a better understanding of my own condition of what I was dealing with. And then Dr. B, he came on again back at LA Talk Live, and he shared again more about sickle cell trait and some risk factors. This is one of my talks that I do. I don't know how long is that. That's 2 minutes. Let's play this. What time is it? Yeah, let's play this one real quick. This is a lot about the risk factors. This is part of my presentation when I do it either online or in person. It says, although in rare cases, people with sickle cell trait might experience complications of sickle cell disease, such as pain crisis in their extreme form, rare cases, following conditions. So that paragraph right there is, again, personal to me because my left arm has ached since I can remember 5 years old, but I remember talking to my mom, and my mom said I was like 2 years old and I would be crying a lot. And at 5, I was able to, voice that more. And I remember my arm aching at night, and my grandmother would hold me over the sink and run warm water over my arm, and that would soothe my pain, and I would go back to sleep. Again, in 1975, they took me to the doctor, and they told my grandparents, it was growing pains. He's 5, don't worry about it. I'm telling you now, I'm 50, and that pain in my arm has not gone away. And so I just grew up with that arm pain. It is a pain that I kid you not, I wish I was a black Ken doll and I could pop it off and put it on the dresser because it hurts so bad. And even to this day, I still manage that pain in my arm. So with the research that they're doing now, finally, the people that I've met with sickle cell trait, these are the common symptoms that you hear: pain crisis, fatigue. You have people who've gone scuba diving, mountain climbing, and they've had some serious effects from it. Low oxygen levels, places like Denver, Colorado. If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you may know that Ryan Clark experienced sickle cell trait exertion playing football in Denver. I believe he lost his spleen and gallbladder from that exertion, and he could never play in Denver. Cost us some championship runs, but nonetheless, he could not play in Denver anymore. So low oxygen levels in the air, mountain climbing, again, exercising extremely hard in military boot camp or training with athletic competitions. So again, I experienced mine in 2006. I was at a military installation working on my master sergeant rank, and I was out, I think my 17th year. I had done that exam 2 times a year for the previous 17 years. So it was like another morning getting up. I got up and did the push-ups, sit-ups, and then the 2-mile run, I was out. And I remember we're trained to sprint that last lap in the military. So I remember talking to myself, and I kicked in that next gear, and it says, although. So yes, again, very, 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 very important conversations. I got videos, so you can go to the website. This is at farrond.com, or you can go to Rhabdo.info, and that'll actually take you straight to the page here. But these are the conversations that I've been having. And again, when I talked about the first half of the show about the grief and the willingness to die and the suicide ideations and all the stuff that I went through, this conversation helped me interrupt that willingness to die, where I've realized that God gave me that inherited gene in my mother's womb. So when you understand that you were born for a reason, when you're born for a purpose, and you discover that for yourself, life looks different. And I'm here to share with you that that's what it looks like. It looks like you discovering why you were born. And if we can help people discover that, especially our veterans, what's next? My identity was trapped in that camouflage in that ring. I can articulate it to you today because I've done so much work to try to maintain myself. Not try to, but to maintain myself. That I can tell you that that's what that looks like. If we can help others discover what's going on with them and help them figure out what's next in life, we could alter what's going on in the world today. I'm going to do one last website before I get out of here. wdconect.org. This is the Sickle Cell Trait website. You can go here. I have tabs all over, videos on that page as well. There's a video from the Rhabdo. I may be going to Mozambique. I don't know yet. I'm waiting to get screened by the church ministry. More talks about Rhabdo and another incident. Another place I was at Camp Robert. All these videos are here. This is me. I got a proclamation from the mayor of Fontana. So every August I get a proclamation. I think I'm on my 10th one. And so I go there, get my proclamation, share with the community about how important it is. And you'll find me, in the community advocating. This is a survey my daughter Deja created in college. So we use that survey to get more information. There's that video. There's the PSA. And then these are all the specific areas that we address around sickle cell trait. Firefighters, CrossFit, law enforcement, professional athletes, awareness for the schools, coaches, parents, students, military, nurses, couples, pregnancy. This conversation is critical. And I'm grateful that God has given me this message to deliver. I hope you learn something from this. If you know somebody that has a trait and you learn something, pass them to me, give them some information, let them know that somebody out here has some knowledge and some understanding and has a story to tell about that sickle cell trait gene that they possibly carry. Again, is it benign or not? They're starting to realize and tell the truth that sickle cell trait is not benign. For those in Denver, my family in Denver, one of your football players for the Broncos, Ronnie Hillman, he passed away a few years back with sickle cell trait from a rare kidney cancer directly associated to sickle cell trait. He passed away. By the time they found his cancer, he was already at stage 4. He put up a post on social media on his Instagram page, and in a few weeks after that, he was gone. And when you look at that world, like, okay, that's professional sports. How did they not catch that rare kidney cancer by him playing football in Denver? Denver is one of those places that, is not a really good spot for people with sickle cell trait because of the elevation, right? And because of the low oxygen, right? So again, this is important. I know it's critical. It's definitely a critical conversation, and I'm just thankful that I'm God has allowed me to share this conversation with y'all. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. I got like 3 minutes left. Again, if you have more questions, you want to be a part of that, you want to be a guest on here, you got something to say, hit me up at Farron Dozier on all your platforms. And again, farrond.com is where mostly you can find a lot of this information. It'll lead you to somewhere where I'm at as far as what I'm up to. You'll find the tab for it. And then the WDC on SCT is with focus on sickle cell trait. You could go there and get some information. So again, thank you for today. I didn't think I was going to be here that long, but this is where we are. Next week, we will see. Stay tuned. I post my things on social media. So if I'm going to be here next week, or we might replay this episode, not sure yet. So again, thank you for your time today, for watching and listening and being a part of this awareness campaign right here. This is the Farron Dozier Show on the Military Broadcast Radio Network. One more last PSA to remind you, shout us out, what's the count?
Do you remember studying sickle cell in biology class? What's the Count on Sickle Cell Trait Prevention is here to bring you awareness, education, and prevention conversations around the risk factors of this inherited gene. Visit WDCONSCT.org.